Good afternoon to one and all present here. I am Isha Bhanushali on behalf of Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai, have the honor of moderating today's workshop. I would like to begin with a quote said by Mahatma Gandhi. Dignity of human nature requires that we must face the storms of life. So this is a one-day training program on drafting of living wills. The history of living wills dates back to 1969 when the American lawyer Louis Kertner first proposed it. He viewed it as a simple device to allow patients to say no to life-sustaining treatment that they did not want, even if they were too ill to communicate. For the first time, the concept of living will was concretely used in India in the Aruna Schonbach case filed in 2009. The Supreme Court had dismissed the petition. However, in its landmark opinion, it allowed passive euthanasia in India by issuing a set of broad guidelines. Despite the legal recognition of living wills in India, there is a significant lack of awareness about this document among the general population. I would like to ask each one present here if you were aware about the concept of living will, its legal provisions and the process involved before learning about this workshop. So this workshop will enhance the drafting skills of the students and will enable them to extend their services to train others for the same. It is the first ever training workshop on living wills in India. The Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai was established in 2004. It is one of the premier national law universities in India. Honorable Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud, is the Chancellor of this university, who not only guides but also inspires the institution with his novel ideas and rich experience in the field of law. Our Vice Chancellor, Professor Dilip Uke, a renowned academician in law with varied experience in teaching and research, is our luminary. Our pillar, our registrar, Professor Dr. Anil Varyat, supports us through his vast network, resources and administrative legal practice experiences. Due to some exigencies, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Dilip Uke, and our Registrar Sir, Dr. Anil Varyat, couldn't be here with us today. This workshop is organized by MNLU Mumbai in association with the Center for Advanced Legal Studies, Training and Research and the Pro Bono Club. It was envisioned by our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, with the objective of this workshop to enable students to understand the concept, need and law on living wills and advanced directives in the backdrop of right to life versus right to die. With this, I would like to welcome our guest speaker and renowned health rights activist, Dr. Nikhil Datar. He is a senior consultant in obstetrics and gynecology at the Cloud9 Hospital. He also consults at Lifewave Hospital and Yashoda Maternity and Nursing Home. He was a teacher to postgraduate students at the R.N. Cooper Hospital for about 10 years. He has received 2 gold medals, the Dr. B.N. Purandare Gold Medal and the Dr. Dastoor Gold Medal for his achievements, and was also awarded a prestigious Commonwealth Professional Fellowship by the Department of Health, United Kingdom in 2009. Dr. Nikhil Datar is popularly known as a health rights activist working intensively for patient rights and transparency in healthcare. With this, now I would like to request Dr. Anand Raut Sir to commence the program with the welcome address.
Thank you, Nisha. The way today's program is being organized and the way Nisha has introduced, you will all get a feel that Sir is an outsider to the university and we have invited him as a special guest. Well, he is special out of those things, but he is not a guest, he is not an outsider, rather he is honorary professor of the university. So universities have a system of professor, adjunct professors and honorary professors. He is an honorary professor. Most of you won't be knowing it because you joined offline classes after the pandemic, and these all developments, they took place in pandemic. Before pandemic also, Sir has been visiting our university and has been guiding our students Our students have interned under him. He has taken up a subject on health law. Rather, he is the first teacher of health law in the state of Maharashtra, if I can say so. Because Mumbai University, when they introduced this subject of health law, he was one of the first ones who was approached. He was also a student, as far as I remember, and he was also asked to teach the same course where he was the student. And then universities all across India, including National Law University, Bangalore, Symbiosis, and universities outside India have been inviting him. Now, if you want to know more about Sir, there are so many of them, but few of the things that I keep on seeing and I keep on watching is his interview in Satyameva Jayate, one of the series which was hosted by Amir Khan, and he was invited there to deliver a discussion talk on the collection of evidence from rape survivors. You can see it's available on YouTube. I'll also be sharing with you the link. Secondly, Dr. Nikhil Datta versus Union of India. This also you can refer the petition. And then if you just put his name in the news section of Google, you'll come to know what all kinds of initiatives he has taken up. Besides strenuously working on the medical side, he is a very, very busy gynecologist. And during COVID, he was one of those doctors who were open to treating pregnant ones who were suffering from COVID. Many doctors refrained from taking up such cases, but he was one of those few people who was open to it, and he dared all the odds, and then he was serving for the people out there. Sir has been associated with the university on research fronts also. The university has provided consultation to FOGSI, one of the organizations of gynecologists and obstetricians, which members hosts 36,000 gynecologists. So this organization FOGSI is one of the largest organization of gynecologists and obstetricians in the world, and university with his help has provided them guidance on drafting of pre-operative consent form. That is the consent form that you have to get signed from the patients before you operate them for therapeutic or other purposes, or diagnostic purposes also sometimes. So I and Sir, we along with few of the members of FOGSI, we drafted that consent form, and I think it is now been made available to millions of people, and millions of surgeries would be carrying out. And when we were coming out with this form, we also took guidance from the experts in the field, from sitting High Court judges. They approved it, they shared their comments, from Lokpal, from the presidents of consumer forums, from lawyers, patients and doctors. We all took their opinions and we came out with this. Now, recent past a thing happened, and Supreme Court came up with a judgment on living wills, a long awaited judgment on living wills. And earlier, the way we used to make will for our property, how are we to be treated when we are in a particular situation where we cannot convey our wish? What is to be done? And living will is not just restricted to the way I am supposed to be treated in those difficult times, but also what is supposed to happen with my organs. So those all things are interconnected, and Sir would be deliberating upon it. And Sir, about the students, I want to share with you is that what we had floated with the students is that we invited applications from those students who were dedicated to the cause, So after the training session, once they learn drafting of living wills, we would be approaching those people who want to draft living wills for them. These people will help them in drafting. The next step would be that these students will also be helping them to get it notarized. Once it gets notarized, we'll get it registered with the officer dedicated in the municipal corporation. And this all we are carrying out under pro bono club scheme. So the university has opened up, with the help from Department of Justice, a pro bono club. They have a scheme called Nyaya Bandhu scheme. Under that scheme we have established a pro bono club, and we have been carrying out many pro bono activities, and this is one of them. So I won't be taking much of your time, and I know the students are also waiting to listen to you, sir. Yeah, Misha, over to you.
I request Anand sir to felicitate Dr. Nikhil Datar. I request all the participants to silence their cell phones. Any questions or suggestions may be asked to the speaker towards the end of this session. With this, now we will commence the workshop. I would like to invite Dr. Nikhil Datar to take over this workshop.
Well, boys and girls, thank you very much. First of all, Misha, thank you very much. Thank you, Anand sir, for giving the most appropriate introduction. When I am speaking in front of young students of MNLU, it's a very, very proud moment for me to be here and be a part of the MNLU, be the honorary professor at the MNLU. I am told that there are only 2 honorary professors in the MNLU or in all national universities, I think, all MNLUs, and I am one of them. Shri Nandini, your senior, I think she is passed out now.
5th year student.
5th year student. So she was the person who kind of interned with me. She helped me in filing a challenge which at the moment of time is kind of in the Supreme Court in terms of the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. So sir told you about the case Dr. Nikhil Datar versus Union of India about the medical termination of pregnancy. That was the case which was probably the most common case for all your moot court competitions a few years back actually. And ultimately, I mean, it was the judicial activism done by me and few other like-minded people whom I kind of helped them. Nearly 324 cases took place all across various high courts, Supreme Courts, etc. And ultimately, because of which the Parliament had to amend the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. Now it's MTP Act 2021. And even that law also has a lot of lacunae. So I have again filed a challenge, and this challenge, when we kind of drafted at that point of time, Shri Nandini was very helpful in drafting that particular piece of document, and the report that was kind of written by me and Shri Nandini together is now a part and parcel of the petition that is there in the Supreme Court challenging the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. So that's the kind of real work that students of MNLU have done, and they have done it absolutely brilliantly. I was very happy to teach health law course actually during COVID times. It was all online, and I really enjoyed teaching health law at that point of time. So I think you people are new batch and probably you're not aware of the things that have happened in the past, so which is quite understandable. I would have liked, actually speaking, to have a more informal kind of a discussion, and I think let us. I suppose I don't think we have a column mic, and this boy is recording, so I don't think it will be easy for him to kind of do the informal kind of a stuff. But let us think that we are all informally discussing, because it's a small crowd, and let's be open to discussion. We don't want it to be a monologue. I want you all to participate in the discussion. By the way, I am supposed to be the first person. That's what Times of India says, that I am supposed to be the first person in the country who has completed the formality of filing living will. Okay? So my living will is filed. So I have made my decisions in terms of what should be done and what should not be done. When I am at that stage where I am vulnerable, where I am at the end of life, where there is a possibility, and I am 100% sure that each one of you probably must be having some relative, grandmother, grandfather who are absolutely old, who are debilitated, who are terminally ill, who are probably dementing, who are themselves saying that, that I want to have a peaceful death, etc. Okay, and nobody really knows what needs to be done about such kind of people, and how do we ensure, how do we protect them, how do we protect their interests, okay, how do we ensure the element of dignity that needs to be there. So I'm sure that a lot of you all are aware of this, and anybody of you all have this kind of an experience, at your home, or you've seen such kinds of things around in your family or extended family or neighborhood or society. Anybody? Yes, that's correct. Anybody else? Only you are. Don't behave like lawyers, okay? Maybe yes, maybe no. Don't do that, okay? You are still not lawyers. You are still students, so you can either straight away raise your hand or don't raise your hand. Okay, one of the two. Don't do it halfway through. Okay. Yeah. So please, anybody? That's correct. All right. So we all know about this problem. Yes or no?
Yes.
Has the medical science advanced?
Yes.
Has it advanced to a scenario where sometimes death can be postponed?
Yes.
So today you have ventilator, lungs are not working, put on ventilator. Heart is not working, give medicine so that the heart as a pump starts working. Kidneys have failed, put them on dialysis. Infection has happened, give highest amount of antibiotics. Okay? Person is tied to tubes, IV fluids, all sorts of things. Okay, but you can still maintain, or you can still keep him alive. Now, would you want to call that as life? Yes or no? Well, different people could have different opinions, but good number of them will consider it as not life. You are alive, but there is no life. So it means that you are not prolonging life, you are actually meaninglessly prolonging the death, or you are meaninglessly prolonging the or meaninglessly postponing the death. Okay. Now what do you do in such kind of a scenario? That's the question. Okay, imagine that there is somebody who is attached to a ventilator, and I am telling you these real examples. Okay, we as doctors see them every now and then in ICUs and stuff like that. So you have somebody who is an 90-year-old terminally ill person, maybe dementic, maybe terminally ill, last stage of cancer, 92 years old, just simply stuck to all sorts of tubes, but he is just not dying because he is on all sorts of support, just meaninglessly, as in what I said, meaninglessly postponing the death of the person. Okay, there will be certain group of relatives who will come forward and who will say that doctor, we don't want to continue the treatment. Why don't you remove the ventilator, or why don't you stop the treatment? Okay. As students of law, do you think that that is possible?
Yes.
If yes, then how? That's passive euthanasia, right? So if we keep euthanasia aside, then is it possible? Because in the law of the land, okay, and in the medical ethics, the job of the doctor is to continue treatment, okay, and to ensure that the person's life is the sanctity is being tried to maintain, right? So there is a potential possibility that if you do something aggressively or even decide not to do something, okay, and that too as a doctor, and because of which someone's death is hastened, that can also be terminated as culpable homicide. Okay, so the question is, there is a lot of limitation on the doctor to do whatever the doctor is trying to do. Now, can person have a right to refuse treatment?
Yes.
Very much so. There is no problem on that front. Legally, there is no problem on that front. Now, who is the person here? That same 19-year-old fellow. Is he conscious? No. Can he take decision?
No.
Does he have the capacity to take decision?
No.
So he doesn't have the capacity to take the decision. Okay? So if we are trying to say, okay, let us ask him what he is wanting to say. If he only says that let us withdraw, I am going home, problem is solved. But he doesn't have the capacity only to take the decision. Okay? Now if at all suppose somebody is there, and we have studied this, I am sure. How many of you are from first year LLB and how many of you are from most of you are first? So I mean, I suppose still you must be aware of these basic principles of law, that if there is somebody who doesn't have the capacity to consent, okay, there has to be the next kin who has the capacity to consent, right? Now who is the next kin? Maybe it is 90-year-old fellows, some relative may be there, maybe son, daughter, whosoever, who may be 40, 50, whatever. So they have the capacity to consent. Now let us say they say on behalf of this gentleman, 90 years old, that we don't want to continue the treatment. Okay, so if you don't want to continue the treatment, then what do? You go home. It's as simple as that. You take you kind of say that we are taking discharge against medical advice because you don't want to take the treatment. So what's the point in staying in the hospital? So you take the person home. Are they willing to take the person home? Answer is no. Why? How will they take care of this person at home? So you want hospital to kind of keep the person but not treat the person. Why? Because you can't treat that person or take care of that person at home. Why? Because we have a very poor social condition. Okay, whatever, houses are small, we don't get the required manpower to take care of such kind of elderly people, whatever the reasons may be, including one genuine fear that if suppose something untoward happens, and there is nothing untoward, the person is going to lose the life, who will give the death certificate is also a problem. Right? So relatives will say that no, we don't want to take the person home, we want to keep the person here in the hospital, but we don't want you to treat the person. And then the doctor says that if you want to keep in the hospital, hospitals are meant for treating, hospitals are not meant for, it's not some asylum or some hostel or some hospice or something of that sort. If you are in the hospital, you should be treated. So either you take treatment or you go home. You can't do something in between the two. Right? Now interestingly, after a few days, some other relative may come. Initially was the son, maybe later on maybe another son or some daughter or somebody, and that person might have a completely different viewpoint. That person may say, no, we don't want to withdraw the treatment, we want to continue the treatment. Or that person might not be believing only in the fact that there is something called as passive euthanasia. He might be having a completely different thought process about it. Now the doctor is in fix because the person about whom we are talking about, he doesn't have the capacity to consent. You have two people in front of you. Both have got the maybe same relationship. Both are sons, or one is daughter, one is son, or whatever it is. One says that we want to withdraw, one says we don't want to withdraw. Now who has a superior power of decision making out of the two siblings? Do we have an answer in law for this? No, we don't have an answer in law for this. Right? The only thing we may say, okay, you go to the court and the judge decide who has got the superior capacity and all that kind of thing. It's not practically possible. Right? So these are actually genuine, practical, real life scenarios and situations because of which we have a very big problem. Our population is aging, and mostly in this whole discussion we realized that we were talking of doctors' duties and responsibilities, relatives' convenience slash their own ideals or whatever you want to call it as. But in this whole bargain, what we have missed out completely is about the dignity of the person himself. Okay, his human rights in itself. Okay, he is having a absolutely ill-dignified kind of a scenario, you know, onto that ICU bed, tied with the multiple tubes and things like that. Okay, and then who is going to look after the dignity of that person? That's another question. Okay, which is a very huge question, and that's why some sort of mechanism was required. And as she said that the judgment was already passed in the Supreme Court long time back. The Supreme Court said that whatever the case may be, there is a potential possibility of abuse and misuse as well of some such kinds of provisions. So that's why whatever the case may be, we are not going into that. There's a huge judgment. People can read, those who are interested. It's a beautiful judgment which was delivered. But crux of the matter today for our purposes at this point of time is that our law, our country, our apex court decided that we cannot allow any kind of an active euthanasia. We can allow something called as a passive euthanasia. So basically what do you mean by passive euthanasia is that you can kind of not initiate the treatment if at all, okay, but you cannot give any kind of a treatment to cause someone's death. Okay. Are you aware that there are some countries in the world where active euthanasia is legal? Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Can you name any of those countries?
Switzerland.
Okay. So basically a lot of European countries, Denmark, Scandinavian countries, some part of Australia. So these are few countries where euthanasia is allowed, and Switzerland more so. Now do you know how come Switzerland is, do you know that there is a difference between Swiss law and Indian law?
Yes.
Can anybody tell me? Just you are a law student, that's why I'm asking you that question. Sorry? Yeah, but as far as death is concerned, any starking difference that you find between Swiss law and Indian law? In Swiss law, in their equivalent of IPC, okay, the clause or the section which is related to abatement of suicide, okay, that particular section is not there in the Swiss penal code, okay, which is there in Indian penal code. Okay, that's a big difference between Swiss law and Indian law. And do you know why that difference is there?
Because when you are administering euthanasia, you are either abetting or helping that person commit
Correct.
kind of a
So I am
technical-
asking you the question that why in Switzerland?
So because if you are legalizing euthanasia at one point, you cannot have another law
Agreed.
criminalizing that.
Agreed. But euthanasia came later, right? The penal code came first. Anyway, everywhere in the world. Correct? So what are the sources of law? These are very typical legal questions I am asking you all. What are the sources of law? One of the sources of law is customs. And do you know that there is a custom in Switzerland and those countries? I forget exactly the name that is supposed to be used for them, for that custom, but you can find it out. I just cannot recollect that name right now. Those people who are very old, extremely old and fragile, the custom was that they put them in a kind of a what you call it as some kind of a tokery type of a thing, okay, and you push them into the ice. Okay, go up to the top of the mountain and push them into the ice valley. That was the custom. And because of that custom, and actually there are many such customs in India also. Are you aware of them? Do you know of Santhara? Jainism believes in Santhara. Any Jain person here? Jainism believes in Santhara. Of course, that's very voluntarily. That's not somebody killing somebody. Santhara is a different ballgame altogether. It's very voluntarily renouncing food, water, etc. Am I right?
Yes, sir. Again, it's not practiced through all sects of them.
Absolutely. I mean, so basically what I'm just digressing and asking you very legal questions, okay, because these are the legal questions that you will be asked in your exam also, and this is the practical implications, practical application of that, right? So that's why Switzerland is different than India. That particular law came from, or that whole abatement thing which I spoke about has that kind of a root in their custom, and that's how Switzerland has kind of developed that kind of a law, and that's why Switzerland is called as the death tourism country, okay, where people go there to die. Okay. Anyways, that's all about active euthanasia. We are not going there. I just kind of said about it. Acha, by the way, what is the time frame we are talking of? Because otherwise I can talk for 10 hours. So it's like 5:43. What time is? When do we end? Have we got some what you call your invitation and all that? Must be mentioning, no, some timing. Onward, no, but we will wind it up in half an hour, 45 minutes, or not more than that. Okay. Are you finding this interesting?
Yes, sir.
That's good. Thank you. Because looking at your faces, I am getting confused whether I am talking any sense or you are bored, or is it like you want to go for your sports day or what? You know, so you got some sports week, right? No, what time the sports week is? I think we will wind up in half an hour, 45 minutes, so that you all can push off for your sports week, right? Okay. So, sum and substance of the story, coming back to the point. So, we in our country now have got passive euthanasia. That's not the problem, right? Now, passive euthanasia again can have two types. Okay, one is where the medical personnel is taking decision in terms of withdrawal of care. Okay, and this particular thing happened in particular case, and there's an elaborate discussion that has happened about brain dead people. Okay, so you have somebody brain dead and there's a whole lot of committee and jing bang and this committee and that committee and all that kind of thing. Let's not go into the practicalities of it or impracticalities of it, but this girl, sorry I forget your name, you all are doing some kind of a work around this whole kind of work piece around some kind of proposal you are writing, research proposal. So that's the question, and that's one of the very important things that Supreme Court has spelled about brain dead. But there are so many such kinds of conditions. Brain dead, being brain dead is one of the conditions, but there are so many such kinds of scenarios actually where we still are unsure as to what do we do, because there is a clear pronouncement of judicial pronouncement about brain dead. Only brain dead constitutes only 5%. What do we do with remaining 95%? So that's one very important legal question, okay, that we need to address as far as the research is concerned. So that's about that. Okay, now we come to the sub part of it, and that sub part is exactly what we are talking of, that is living will. Okay, so do you all know, first year doesn't have succession law, right?
No.
Alright. Okay, but we understand succession basically, right? So the way you make a will for your property, okay, similarly you can make a will about what should be done and what should not be done. Okay, when you are at that kind of a stage where you have lost capacity to consent. Okay, so can somebody write as to what should be done and what should not be done? That is what is basically a living will. So living will basically is a document, okay, it's a legal document which has legal sanctity, where the person, practically speaking, writes down his wishes about his healthcare choices when he is at the end of life or when he is incapacitated of making his own decisions. As long as he has the capacity to take his own decisions, there is no need for having a living will, because he himself is capable of taking the decision. He may say, I don't want to get admitted, I don't want to take treatment, or he may say that I want to take treatment, or he may say that out of the available choices, I only want to take palliative care treatment. Do you know what is palliative care? Palliative care is supportive care, okay, trying to keep the person pain free and things like that. Right? So all those choices an individual can make very happily, because he has the legal capacity to take the decisions, legal capacity to consent or refuse consent. Okay. So here we are talking of a scenario where the person has lost that capacity and somebody else is going to take the decision, being a proxy, somebody else is going to take the decision. So who all will be kind of affected by the living will, which is made by the person? In short, he is writing instructions for the whole of the world. those instructions should be followed by his near and dear ones also. Those instructions should be followed by the doctors and the hospitals also. That is the sum and substance of the story as far as living will is concerned. So what had happened was, this whole living will was also discussed in that Aruna Shanbak and all that, and believe you me, almost 8 or 9 years since the time the judgment was passed. But do you know when the judgment was passed? 2014. From 2014 till 2022 or 23, in spite of judgment being passed in 2014, not a single living will was made in this particular country. Why so? Because Supreme Court laid such kind of guidelines for making the living will that dying will be easier than making living will. Okay, you make a document and go to JFMC and magistrate of first class. Few of our senior doctors from Mumbai, I mean one of our professors from KEM hospital, she tried to do a living will. Okay, first of all, going to JFMC by itself is a troublesome kind of an activity. I mean, we all know that. And then on the top of it, JFMC said, we don't have any instructions from our top officials, and that too, I am a criminal. JFMC is supposed to look after criminal law. No, ye sab humko aata nahi, you go back. I mean, nobody could register this particular kind of a document, and that's why there was a body of critical medicine, Indian Society of Critical Medicine from Chennai. Okay, they kind of filed a miscellaneous application in the Supreme Court, and that application came up for hearing, and ultimately the Supreme Court decided, or Supreme Court kind of accepted the fact that, well, there needs to be a downgradation, okay, of the requirements for the living will, so that it is made easy, it is made conducive for people to do one, and that's why a lot of those guidelines were now reduced or removed or downgraded or whatever you want to call it as, and that has made things quite easy. Now it is possible to be done, and that's exactly why I also could do it. Okay, so I made my will, and I mean the rest of it you can find out from Google and all that kind of thing, right? So now let's come to, so we have understood as to this is a legal document. First of all, this is to be made by the person for himself. The document will come into application only and only when A, he is into that kind of a scenario, when he is incapacitated, when he is at the end of life, when he is terminally ill, when the chance of he recovering back is not that very great or very easy, and most importantly when he has lost capacity to consent. Till that time, living will does not come into picture. So this is very, very vital. Okay, so when you are drafting the will, this part will have to be a part and parcel, that when the applicability of living will get started. Obviously, it goes without saying that you will have to give the decision making capacity to someone. Okay, you can't say that, well, in general it should be done like that and all that, right? I mean, we don't write legal documents like that, right? So that means we will have to have 1-2 persons who are like nominees, okay, who are supposed to be entrusted with the responsibility, okay, of ensuring that the living will is followed. So even that person's name, his relationship and those details have to be there in the living will. Okay, now let me read through these few important paragraphs. I will be very fast. It's very straightforward and simple, but you are first year student, so this might be a new thing for you, because I don't think you have got the experience of drafting any legal document as such, most of you being first year student. So who can execute advance directive or living will? Advance directive and living will are like synonymous to each other. Advance directive can be executed only by an adult who is of a sound and a healthy state of mind and in position to communicate, relate and comprehend the purpose and consequences of executing the document. So when you are drafting, all these things you have to keep in the mind, that your drafting should say that this is what it is and should be able to demonstrate. It must be voluntarily executed without any coercion and inducement or compulsion, or after having full knowledge of information. It should have characteristics of an informed consent given without undue influence and constraint. Do you know what is informed consent? Do you know that there is a judgment on informed consent? Do you know that the principles or the standards of informed consent across the world differ? Do you know there is concept called real consent and informed consent. So read the judgment. Samira Kohli versus Dr. Prabha Manchanda. It's a easily downloadable judgment from Google. Okay, the judgment is all about informed consent. Apex Court has laid down certain standards. How should the consent be taken in our country as far as medical treatment is concerned? So in short, the Supreme Court has said that ingredients of informed consent or real consent in India mean, if you are, of course, that judgment is basically about medical procedure. So meaning or the description, alternatives, what will happen if that procedure or treatment is refused, outline of substantial risks involved, okay, are the 5 ingredients of informed consent, and that's exactly what this judgment is also referring to, that this is what needs to be explained. So your draft will also have to include, okay, that the person is saying in the document that, well, I am aware of what will be done or what will not be done, what are the alternatives, what are the consequences, all those kinds of things. So those things have to come into your document. Okay? It shall be in writing clearly stating as to when medical treatment may be withdrawn or no specific medical treatment shall be given, which will only have the effect of delaying the process of death that may otherwise cause him or her pain, anguish, suffering further, etc., etc., etc. Okay? It should clearly indicate a decision relating to the circumstances in which the withholding or withdrawal of medical treatment should be done. It should be in specific terms, and instructions must be absolutely clear and unambiguous. It should mention that the executor may revoke the instructions and authority at any given point of time, and it should disclose that the executor has understood the consequences of executing the same kind of a document. And obviously, it goes without saying that you'll have to have some proxy whose name should be written. So these are few important ingredients. And I think this is again, I think probably you can just simply write down this whole judgment, you can download, okay, for you to study. And so this is basically miscellaneous application number 1699 of 2019, in writ petition civil number 215 of 2005. So you can download this whole judgment which I am referring to, and you can read it. I mean, since you are law students, you should read it. Otherwise, I can simply give you my draft. So if you Google my website, that is drnikhildatar.com, drnikhildatar.com, NIKHIL Nikhil datar.com. You will be able to download the preliminary draft that I have made. It's freely downloadable. You can download that draft. But if you are interested in being law students, then it is worthwhile that you read this judgment in its totality, so that it is of great help to you. Okay? Yes, please. Yes, please. Oh, citation you mean? Okay. So you want to take this? Just take this. Maybe you are making some notes or something. So you take this. No, give it to her. Take a picture or whatever, and share it with people. Yeah. Any questions so far? Any difficulty? Yes,
One
please.
question.
Yes.
The object of the living will only be concerned with the medical procedure of what treatment has to be administered, or will it also entail all the procedures that a normal, stereotypical will entail?
Okay.
So what is the
Very good
entire
question.
object?
So tell me one thing, when does the will come into picture?
After the death.
And when does the living will come into the picture?
When you are but the will, which we stereotypically understand the will related to properties and division of properties, that is also made when you are alive, right?
Absolutely.
So the tested,
Absolutely.
When
Absolutely.
you are alive.
Absolutely.
Unless
So when is the, that's exactly what I am asking. You draft the will. Okay, you draft the living will. Both have to be drafted when you are alive, when you are hale and hearty, when you have capacity to consent, all that kind of thing, right? But when does the will come into picture? When does it get executed?
after.
Have you seen those old Hindi movies? After the death, some 7-8 days later, some lawyer comes, then he, out of the lifafa, he brings out the will, and then all the relatives are there and he reads it, right? Now imagine a situation that the lifafa is now out, and then the lawyer starts reading that I should not be given this treatment, I should not be given that. Are Baba, but that fellow is dead already 8 days back. Now what is the point in reading this today? Correct? So what does that mean? It means that you have to have two different documents. Okay, living will and will, though they begin at the same, probably at the same point of life, maybe that is what you said, which is correct, but their execution point is totally different. The execution point of living will is going to be before death, and the execution point of will is going to be after death, and that's one of the commonest mistake that a lot of people do, that they make one single document for everything. Okay, so it's of no use actually. So you have to make two different documents. Now living will, although is primarily meant to give instructions on withdrawal or withholding of treatment, of course you can add a few additional things, more particularly about organ donation. Okay, because that's another thing which will be done peri-death or immediately, maybe post-death. Okay, now by that time nobody is opening the will. See, it's all practical scenarios. However, the old man is old or woman is old. Okay, as soon as the person has died, people don't chalo, now let us read will, what is written. No, that's not what is supposed to be done, right? Okay, it will look very bad actually, as a matter of fact. Correct? So you have to have a separate living will, you have to have a separate will. Okay, will come quite late in picture, and living will come quite early in picture. Right? Right? Any other questions? Yes, please.
Sir, like we cannot foresee all the medical.
Absolutely.
So what is the scope? Like what can we improve? Because if I am not in the capacity to give consent, I don't know for how long I will be in that situation. So I don't know like which exact treatment I
Correct.
want to.
Perfect.
take or I
Perfect.
don't know. How is that?
Perfect. It's a very practical and very genuine question. Okay, and to be very honest with you, you cannot kind of think of all possible conditions that you can have as such in your lifetime or when you are at the end of life. But you can by far and large be very specific or very categoric as to what all things. Now, what all the commonest things? Right? Something like, let's say somebody is in terminally ill condition. Let's say last stage of cancer. Somebody may say that, well, this should come into picture only after my age of 75. Or somebody may kind of make it more specific by saying that if I am very badly dementing. Okay. Now these are few things, these are few guidelines that you can make for yourself. At this point of time, you cannot predict what is going to happen tomorrow. How will you predict what is going to happen after 15 years or 20 years? But these are some basic guidelines that you can give. Moreover, it's not that you have written and some person is going to go and just show the will and tomorrow immediately the plug is going to be removed. Okay, it's not going to be like that. Yeah, because imagine a situation that I have made a living will, okay, and tomorrow, let's say, while going back from here, I land up with an accident. Okay, and जिसके अंदर वो हिंदी पिक्चर में दिखाते हैं वैसा मैं बेहोश हो गया. Okay, and tomorrow my wife says कि अरे उसने तो living will लिखा है, चलो निकालो इसका. Okay, so that's not what it is supposed to be, right? So that's why you have to mention all these kinds of things. Okay, and categorically, yes, please.
Sir, in addition to what you just said, I mean, definitely, let's say this person is in coma. We don't know whether he's going
Correct.
to be there for like 5
Correct.
days or 5 years or
Correct.
500 years.
Correct.
So how do you, as doctors, decide that this person is in a vegetative state,
Correct.
so to say?
Correct.
So how do you guys go about that? as
Correct.
doctors?
So that is exactly why the next part of this particular judgment, when we read through, okay, how will it actually get implemented? Okay, so we will talk about that. So today I have made the living will. I told you how do you draft, because you are going to draft the living will primarily, so you ought to know what you are going to draft. So I told you about what you are going to draft by far and large. Now the next step is that what happens to this will? Okay, do you kind of go and register the will? Do you require to register a will primarily? Forget living will.
No.
Great. So obviously, can you register living will?
Again, optional.
So it means that by law of the land, a regular property will also does not require to be registered, but it's always a good idea to register, because by registering the will you kind of bring in a sense of authenticity to it, okay, because there's a third party. Okay, ultimately registering authority is what? It's like a custodian's authority, right? I mean, the registrar does not kind of decide about what you said is right, wrong. He is not making any judgments. He is holding it as a custodian. So similarly, for living will, they have made a provision of a custodian, okay, and the custodian is supposed to be Nagarpalika, municipal corporation, Gram Panchayat, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so you don't need to go to the registrar for registering a document, but what is expected is you notarize it with the help of 2 witnesses, and you send a copy of this, okay, to the custodian. Okay, now in Bombay Municipal Corporation of Greater Mumbai, I mean, judgment has come in February only. Not only in MCGM, but nowhere in the country, custodian has yet been appointed. Okay, and I was the first person. Now, how do I handle this situation? So what I did was that I put it on public forum. Okay, Times of India have created a big awaj on it. Okay, and I sent it to the municipal commissioner, saying that I can't find any custodian being appointed, but you are the head of the organization, so I am sending it to you. You keep it with some custodian, whomsoever you want to keep it with. Okay, so it is expected that down the line, custodian will get appointed. Once the custodian is appointed, the custodian will hold the document. So it will, what effect it will give rise to? The effect it will give rise to is that after 20 years, if suppose somebody is referring to, at least there will be a sense of sanctity that this document is 20 years old document, at which time this fellow was quite hale and hearty and able to make the decision, and it's not like forged document. So basically abuse and misuse element, can be avoided, and that's exactly why will registration takes place, and that's exactly why the custodian's concept is there even for the living will. Now let's come to your question, that is in terms of how does the whole process expected to happen. Now so far, living will only I am the first person. Okay, so do you have any kind of a scenario that somebody's living will is now in front of the doctor and doctor is taking the decision on it? अभी है ही नहीं ना, अभी living will जिसने किया है सबसे पहला वही इंसान इधर खड़ा है, अभी वही उधर आईसीयू में पहुंचा नहीं है डॉक्टर का सामने, तो डिसीजन किधर से कौन लेगा? ठीक है, बट द मेथडोलॉजी इज पुट फॉर. नाउ मेथडोलॉजी डज हैव सम लैक्यूने, लैप्सेस, एटसेट्रा, and that's exactly where you have the scope of judicial activism there and legal research there. But the methodology that has been put forth at this juncture of time is as under that whenever a person has done a living will, I have done a living will, let's say I give it to my son, that look, I have made this living will. Whenever I am in that kind of a scenario, you are supposed to use this particular kind of a document. Okay, cut to 25 years ahead. Now I am some 75, 80 years old. I am whatever, I am in ICU. Okay, what my son is supposed to do? My son is supposed to, first of all, he is in constant touch with the doctor. Doctor is saying, look, your father is quite ill. I mean, we don't really find any sense as such. He's like 80 years plus and blah 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 and all that kind of a thing. And that time, my son, who is not necessarily a medico, or my daughter, who is, by the way, my daughter is a solicitor. So she will take this document and go to the doctor and say that, doctor, my father has made a living will. Okay, and his living will says that in such kind of a condition which terminal ill, blah blah blah, etc., he would not want, okay, ABC kind of medical treatments to be done or ABC kind of medical treatments to be withdrawn. Right? Now technically doctor is a third party person. Doctor will also apply his medical mind as to does this person fulfill the requirements which are written in the document. Okay, so that is filter number 1. Now, if the scenario is, which is what I told you funnily, that I am going home, I get an accident and I am in comatose condition and all that, and doctor will say, no, this fellow doesn't fulfill that kind of a condition because he just like has an accident, he has got some brain injury, something like that, some bleeding has happened, we will operate on it. We don't expect him to kind of get into that situation, so there is no question of withdrawal of support and all that kind of thing, right? So doctor will apply his mind first of all. Now, if the doctor thinks that yes, this person is at that kind of a scenario where this particular process can be initiated, okay, then doctor is supposed to inform the hospital, and hospital is supposed to make a committee of 3 doctors Okay, within preferably 48 hours. Okay, so now 3 doctors are putting their heads into it. Okay, now let's say if those 3 doctors are also of the opinion that such and such thing seems to be real and genuine and truthful, then second level committee is supposed to be appointed where different 3 doctors come into picture. Those are different than these people. Out of those 3 doctors, 1 doctor is supposed to be a representative from the municipal corporation or government doctor, one representative from the government side. So there are 6 doctors who are going to look into the scenario and then come to a conclusion that okay, all requirements seem to be fulfilled. There is a fair kind of a possibility or a probability. So do you know the difference between probability and possibility?
Probability is more likely to happen.
And possibility?
Yes.
All possibilities. So do you know that you get people like, oh, that fellow was unconscious for 20 years and suddenly one day he got up and he just started walking. The perfect Hindi masala kind of a picture you can make. But how many such kinds of scenarios have you seen? Probability is extremely, possibility is there. There can be hundreds of possibilities. Yes, please.
Probability is narrowed down the possibility.
You can say that probability is more likelihood of a possibility and possibility is a possibility. Right? So if in all probabilities, if the team of 6 doctors thinks that yes, this really fits into that kind of a condition, only then, okay, the actual execution of pulling the plug is expected to be done, and that too, before that, JFMC is to be informed. That the word informed is there in the judgment. We don't know what does it mean. So again, the question for activism there, what do you mean by informed? Are you expecting JFMC to apply mind? Are you expecting JFMC to only take passive receipt of information? The word that is there in the judgment is informed. Okay? So how many days gone? Minimum 4 days gone. Minimum 4 days. Okay? Yes, please.
Sir, if you say within all the probabilities that the 6 doctors should think the person will not recover in any case, so you are essentially proving beyond reasonable doubt that person is going to die.
Not really. It's not beyond reasonable doubt.
How this?
No, it's not. It's beyond. It's on the basis of preponderance of evidence. It's not beyond reasonable doubt. There's a difference between the word beyond reasonable doubt and you know the difference between civil law and criminal law?
Yes.
Criminal law is beyond reasonable doubt. Civil law is preponderance of evidence.
So how will you differentiate at that stage? There are probabilities like let's say
Yeah, so medical conditions which are there. Okay, I mean there is somebody who is terminally ill with cancer where there is no realistic possibility of recovery at the age of 85 years old. You have enough of medical data which says that recovery to a meaningful life is say less than 1%. Right? That too is being confirmed once again by 6 doctors. That too it's all happening primarily with the consent of the person who is an executor and additionally with the consent of the proxy holder. Okay, now can we still have a situation that out of those 100, one person has suddenly recovered and he has started, wow, there's a possibility. The possibility is there. But it is not beyond reasonable doubts. Okay, beyond reasonable doubts is like you're 100% sure. Okay, that's not what is expected. Okay, it's preponderance of evidence primarily. Yes, please.
A slight question.
Yes.
So, for example, I want to write a draft a living will right now, and I also want, like you said, there are going to be two wills if I want to donate my organs as well. So, how do I go about it? Because I don't know what sickness I will be having in the future. So, do I have to draft a detailed will as to what the procedure should be, or just a vague thing that if I'm in a vegetative state or I'm not functioning?
Right, you're absolutely right. For one small little correction, I said that you require to make 2 different documents. One is a will, which is related to property, and one is living will. Okay, living will can include organ donation. Okay, it may or may not include organ donation. Okay, so living will prima facie plus minus organ donation. That's separate. Will for property is separate. Clear picture? Right. Now coming back to your point. Can you be specific? Yeah, you can be specific. How much ever you want to be specific, you can be. Okay, nobody stopped you from being less specific. But prima facie at this point of time, I mean, if you are asking, let's say, any person, okay, as to what do you really expect, the person will say that when I am beyond like 75 years or 80 years, okay, when I know that I am kind of suffering from a kind of a condition from which I am not going to recover, when I know that I am dementic, and dementia doesn't happen overnight, it takes place slowly and steadily. So everybody knows that the person is becoming dementic and going to continue remaining dementic. Okay, and most importantly, this is all about withdrawal or giving or withdrawing treatment. It's not about a completely dementic person, but who is at home. We are not talking of that condition. We are talking of what condition? Whether there is a need for a specific treatment which needs to be initiated to keep him alive. Now you can have a 85-year-old person who is totally dementic, no control on bowel, no control on bladder. That person cannot recognize anybody, but that person does not require the life support. Person is at home. Now when in that scenario, will living will come into picture? No. But the same person goes further, and a day comes when the person is taken to the hospital and the doctor says, look, I will have to put this person on ventilator to keep him alive. That time living will come into picture. Now you got the difference, right? Now can you be even more specific? Yes, you can be. You can think of 100 diseases and then write down uska wo stage mein wo stage. But how much can you write and how much can you kind of procrastinate? You cannot. So by far and large, you will have to make these broader guidelines, okay, and you will have to give this broader guidelines to people, because ultimately you are drafting the will for your client. So you ask the client only, na, okay, what all conditions do you want, and more importantly, what all things you don't want. Now let's say if somebody says that I am okay if somebody has put a feeding tube, but I am not okay to put me on a ventilator. Then you will say that, no, in the living will, that catheterization is okay, IV fluids is okay, feeding tubes is okay, but surgery is not okay, but putting on ventilation is not okay. Okay, or cardiorespiratory resuscitation. Do you know what is CPR? All that you all see, you know, in all that Baywatch and all those serials, wo jata hai, aisa karta hai, shock deta hai, all that kind of thing, right? That is CPR, right? So somebody may say in this condition, yes please. Any question on Baywatch? No. Go ahead.
I just thought that is living will enforceable? What if in emotions the children don't want to enforce that living will and want to continue with the treatment? Or
Yeah.
something like that?
Good question. Now you are actually coming into the grasp of it actually. Now you people have now really started your thinking minds, thinking heads of an MNLU student is now kind of seen after like half an hour गाड़ी को starter मारने का बाद में अभी थोड़ा सा आने को चालू हो गया. Okay, right. Yes please. Yes please. Yes.
Let's say like I want to make a living will right now. It the specificity or the generosity of the will also depends on my medical knowledge. as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah.
So you can
Oh
do
yeah,
that very well.
absolutely.
Now I have a client who comes to me that I have this condition, now मुझे draft करना है, right?
Yeah.
Now I will have to provide him कि इतनी procedures होती है, these are general procedures, this is what they will do.
Right.
Only if I inform him, then he will
Absolutely.
be able to take informed decision.
Absolutely.
So don't you think there is a prior need of a medical awareness first?
Absolutely. You are absolutely correct, and that's exactly what is lacking, and that's exactly why living wills can't. I mean, there is so much of lack of awareness about living will, about things altogether. And that's exactly why we are doing a workshop, and that's exactly why you are my first guinea pigs. Yeah, as to we are trying to experiment as to how can we go to the society and do it, right? So we are all guinea pigs actually of the system at this point of time. Yes, please.
Like I am taking a living will, like you have made a living will right now. Right now you are in the brink of your health, you are not in the hospital, not in the ICU, right? But there might be a point of time you will be in the ICU in let's say 20-25 years, going by your example.
Correct.
At
Correct.
night time you actually might feel कि नहीं भाई ventilation लगाओ 5% probability I want to live.
Correct.
That is general response, but the majority of people might give.
Absolutely.
So what about the amendments happening at there and there?
Correct. So two questions emerge out of it. Okay, your question and your question. Now your question, okay, in your question only there is an answer. Okay, what is an answer in your question? You said that when at that point of time when you will think that there is 5% possibility, put me on ventilator, which means that your thinking hat is still alive, which means you have capacity to consent, which means the time of living will and its execution has not yet reached, which means that you can continue with the treatment because you have the capacity to consent for the treatment or not for the treatment. Living will come into picture only and only when you have lost the capacity to take the decision, and then you are entirely dependent on your proxy to take the decision on your behalf, and your proxy can best take the decision in your best interest because he is your near and dear one, and because of that particular thing it is expected that the proxy will actually respect the decision that you took, and that's why proxy will or is expected to take the decision, okay, and say that well, this person has written like this, so if this person fulfills the medical requirements, then let it be withdrawn or let it not be started. Now if you ask me that well, I have lost the capacity of consenting or I have lost the capacity of decision making, but you know what, inside me I am still thinking that I want treatment. But you cannot express it. Nobody can find out what is there, you know, inside your head, mind, etc. Whether you have something left in your mind or no, that also nobody knows. Science cannot identify that. So then you are only left at the mercy of your next proxy holder, and hence the proxy holder will come into the picture and take the decision on your behalf. Yes,
Sorry,
please.
last follow
Yes.
on that. So the said now I have incapacitated, I don't have any right to, I don't have any expression. That point of time I'm completely dependent on my proxy. But now again, adding on to his question, he said, is the proxy my next of kin, let's say my wife or my son, and he is becoming emotional and he's not even coming forward. That okay, he had made a living. So don't you think there should be a procedure of enforceability?
Correct, correct. So prima facie, let's imagine what is the condition today. Condition today is, let's say people have got nothing written or whatever informal they have spoken to somebody, aisa mat karna, vaisa mat, all that kind of thing. Okay, the person has informally spoken to one of the children, another child is not aware, children might have their thought processes, etc., etc. So don't you think that rather than having this kind of a chaos, one document which is there, which is made, okay, which kind of dictates at least the wishes of the person, is it a step ahead? Answer is yes, it's a step ahead. Now you are asking that question, that what, okay, my son does not take this paper only in front of the doctor, okay. Now the basic tenement here at this point of time is that I have entrusted the responsibility, okay, to someone to take the decision on my behalf. He is my near and dear one, and that's why basic expectation is that he will follow what I am saying because he has certain love, affection, respect towards me. That is basically accepted fact, okay, and that is why this particular thing is there. But yes, if at all you say that, oh, this is all in saying, but what if at all the child doesn't do it only, okay. Now if the child doesn't do it, doctor may not come to know at all. And if the doctor doesn't come to know, how will the doctor take the effect or execute it? It's not possible to execute it, right? So it is very important that your next kin should kind of be well made aware of the fact that look, this is what I feel about my life, and it is not your life, it is my life. So you have to not put yourself into your shoes and think, you have to put yourself into my shoes and think, this is the way I look at life, or this is the way I look at death. And if you love me, if you respect me, then you are supposed to think like what I am thinking and not how you are thinking. Okay, so adequate amount of communication needs to be done to the next kin. But however, I'm 100% sure that there could be a possibility that somebody does not come forward, does not show, etc., etc. These scenarios and situations may arise later on, maybe 20, 30, 40 years later. We don't know how the law will evolve by that point of time. Now there is one more offshoot which is created. If you read this, give me a second. One more offshoot that is created to this, that they have said that these particular living wills can also be a part of the digital health records. Okay. Now, no, it's not solving the problem, it's increasing the problem, because what might happen is, imagine a situation that while browsing the digital medical record, the doctor knows that this person has filed a living will, but the relative is not coming forward and saying that living will is filed or living will is in existence. Then what do we do?
Sir, doesn't, if you are a doctor and I am at that point of time, I am your deputy, right? I am interested in your care and you are responsible for all my care and treatment, and it is you who has to look after my consent and my dignity of life, and you are looking after my sanctity as well. At that point of time, when you are looking through my health records, you already find a registered living will. Why can't you execute it without any problem?
Answer is that you are giving the proxy to somebody else to execute through the living will. You are not, you may give proxy to the doctor, then it's a different ball game. Okay, but here what we are not typically looking at that situation, right? Because I cannot say that after 25 years who is going to be the doctor, right? But family doctor, if at all is there, family doctor can take that responsibility. So basically the point is that the doctor, the person who is doing the living will, has to see to it that he is entrusting that responsibility to some sensible person, okay, who will be willing to take that kind of a responsibility. And to that kind of a scenario, today we don't have a solution, okay, but that's again a question for your activism as to how do we deal with this kind of a lacuna. Okay, so that today we don't have an answer, but that's exactly what I said, that there's so many points that you will get in this discussion. Only you will get so many points where you will require to do more of research, judicial activism, what are the good practices, what are those kind of practices where this particular kind of a law or case law is in existence for last maybe 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, because we are still kind of evolving. Somebody else, we can take those examples and those things we will be able to. So that's exactly, these are those points that will come into picture. Wait, let us take the question from this girl.
That was like, my question is related to this question only. So like, if the family, the proxy is also aware of the living will and he comes forward and he acknowledges that there's a living will, but I don't agree with this and I think suppose it is expressly stated in the living will that I don't want to be put on ventilator ever under any circumstances. And then my whoever is my proxy comes forward and says that this is the living will, I acknowledge its existence, but I decide to put me on ventilator. So what would hold a higher authority, the living will or the proxy?
Living will, because that's the will, right? That's the wish that has been expressed. There's somebody else. Yes, please go ahead.
Sir, don't you think the concept of the proxy in itself is problematic? Like,
Yeah.
the proxy cannot be everywhere, right?
See, ultimately the truth of the fact is that this is not a perfect system and there is no perfect system, okay, but the truth of the fact is that there is a system which is better than what there is not. Currently it's a complete chaotic system. There is a betterment into the scenario, okay, by having a living will. It's not a perfect system, we have to make it perfect. For making it perfect, what will we require to do? That's exactly what we'll require to do. Law will have to come into picture, time will have to go past, scenarios will have to emerge out, legal questions should need to arise. We may kind of postulate those legal questions through our legal research, okay? Only then the law will mature ultimately, correct? So I completely agree that one can we do away with proxy? Yeah, I mean we can do away with proxy, but today that is not what is there. Today we have to abide by what is currently, what is our mandate today. Our mandate is how do we help people to draft their living will in accordance to existing principles of law. Today, since in absence of legislature, the existing principles of law are the principles set by the Supreme Court's judgment. So how do we help people to do that? That is our work to be done today. Okay, we can put our thinking hats and find out lacunae and try to find a solution, but that's a different piece of work. That's a piece of judicial activism. That's a piece of judicial research. That's a piece of legal research. So, in your legal research, all these questions can come up. That what's the role of proxy? Can proxy be removed? All those are legal research questions. Okay, understood the difference between the two?
Sir.
Yes, please.
So, another
Yes,
question
please.
about the ground reality. So, sir, all these provisions, they are targeted mostly towards old people or people who are not in a position to take decisions. But, sir, like if there is a DNR clause in my living will, and I get into an accident, and the proxy is not there to execute it, then the hospital will not know about it. Then
Absolutely, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. That, and probably last time I will say this, that we are not talking about some Supreme Court which has created some super fantastic, flawless mechanism of justice delivery, and we are talking about it. No, that's not what we are talking about. We are talking about a step forward than the existing chaotic scenario, okay, which is far from being perfect. There is a significant amount of perfection that can be brought in, okay, not only at one point or one place, but hundreds of places. But this is what it is today, and we are at the moment of time helping people to deal with it today with the current limitations that are in existence. Down the line, maybe 10 years later, you might be drafting a completely different type of a living will, maybe. I don't know, that's quite a possibility. But today we don't have a solution to that. Today we are only helping people to draft whatever we are allowed to draft, the way we are supposed to be doing. Yes, please.
So one last question from my side.
Yes.
So this whole debate starts from the very fact that right to life includes right to die in a dignified way, and of course there are plethora of judgments supporting and not supporting it. So what, in your opinion, because we started with this concept of life, living, alive and life, but when we say, we look at a patient, he has all life supporting system on, and we might look at as not so dignified life, but internally maybe he is stable and he is dying, but in a dignified way. But when you are withdrawing this life support system, the question is a little jurisprudential. So you are actually making him not at ease, and it could not be called as life according to some other dimension. So how do we see it?
Perfect. Fantastic question. Thank you very much. This is what is supposed to be MNLU standard. लेकिन तुम लोग को आज ना ऐसा बहुत गर्म करने को बहुत टाइम लगा मेरे को. अभी तुम लोग जरा गर्म हो गए हैं अभी MNLU अभी बाहर आ रहा है. आधा पौना घंटा तो ऐसे ही गया मेरा खाली गर्म करने में इस टाइम. ओके, so the answer to your question lies into something which is called as palliative care. Okay, that's why I was talking to madam that there is a whole piece of work, not only living will, but living will, organ donation and palliative care. Okay, it's a bundle of all four things together, and that's exactly where the question comes in. That are we trying to talk about withdrawing someone's care, and then that person is like literally struggling to die and not dying and having a significant of agony and pain and all that. That's exactly where palliative care comes into picture, and that's exactly where your living will also need to say that utmost amount of pain-free condition needs to be achieved and should be achieved, and medical treatment of that level needs to be administered to me, okay, in that kind of a situation, so that I kind of pass away or I pass off, okay, in a kind of a pain-free condition. Okay, so that's why that is also one very important clause which should be a part and parcel of living will. So if you would whenever you will download my preliminary draft of living will, which is on my website, you will get that clause, which kind of will answer the question. So that was part 2 of your question. Part 1 of your question was that we are looking at that person, we are making our own opinion about that person, but we really don't know what that person is actually internally feeling. That was what your question was, right? And that's exactly the answer. Can you all just take a picture on my phone? And that's exactly the answer that that we are again and again talking about. That it is entirely about that person's way of looking at life, death, etc., etc. Okay. Now, if I am of the opinion that I believe that I should kind of not be put on meaningless prolongation of life kind of treatments, only then will I want to execute the
Sir,
document.
then state cannot interfere. I mean, the state has a duty to protect life, and therefore we have-
Exactly, but that's exactly where living will comes into the picture. That although the state's duty of safeguarding life comes into the picture, this is a kind of a leeway. This is kind of an exception which state has now happily given by this particular judgment of the Supreme Court. Okay, that if this particular methodology is being followed, okay, then you will not be considered contravening your responsibility under the state law of doing whatever you are doing or whatever you are not doing. So two things: A, it's not about what you are thinking about somebody else, it's about what that person is thinking about himself or herself. That person is kind of writing a document, you are only passively following the instructions given by that person. Now if that person feels, no, I don't like this kind of concept, I don't, well, he will not make a will, no. He will not make a living will. Why should everybody make a living will? Suppose tomorrow I feel, no, I want to kind of be on treatment till I realistically die. Let the doctors get frustrated, but I will still not. No, he will not make a living will. Why should you make a living will? Okay? Right? So, yes, please. Now, I think this. अरे बाप रे. अच्छा, 2 quick questions and we'll end because it's already 6:30. तुम लोग का हो गया sports week उधर का?
We are more interested in this.
अच्छा, really? Okay. Yes.
I have written my will and I have registered it. But what if now I want to amend it? Like,
Oh, yeah. Of course. You can very much amend it. Like any other will. Yeah.
null and void and start.
Yeah.
Again, I have to repeat.
Obviously, for will also you have to make, no? If I make a will today and tomorrow suppose I start disliking my son or my daughter and suppose I say, no, I don't want to give property to him, earlier on I had given. So what do? I make a new will, and whichever is the last will made will have the enforceability. Well, same thing will happen with living will also. Yes, please.
Sir, I have made a will that he is my executor. I have specifically written that I should not be given the shock at the end, but anything done is fine. So I am at the ventilator, doctors are doing surgery, but something happens and I am dying. So the shock should be given, right?
Should not, if you have a will, if you have a living will, then obviously it should not be given.
But the possibility of me saving by that shock is very high.
Yes.
If you abstain from doing it, can somebody else file?
Your question is theoretically correct, practically it doesn't happen that way. Why, I will tell you. Basically the fact that doctor is operating on you, okay, doctor is doing a surgery on you, that means the doctor thinks that there is a significant probability of your recovery. That's exactly why doctor is operating on you. Now if the probability of recovery is significant, which automatically means that the time for living will to come into its execution mode has not still come, which means doctor will give shock. When will this particular document have its force? Only when the doctor thinks that you are at a point of no recovery. And if the doctor thinks that you are at the point of no recovery, why would doctor start doing surgery on you? And if the doctor is not doing surgery, where is the question of giving or not giving shock? So your question though is theoretically correct, practically incorrect. Correct?
If we see the practicality aspect of this, then the appointment of 6 doctors and giving their decision is very time consuming.
Exactly.
It's essentially going against the objective of the living will.
So you can think it from both sides, no? In fact, if suppose somebody argues other way around, that minimum 4 days have gone past, which means what? That if you have realistically a possibility of recovering, you will start showing some sense of recovery in 4-5 days. So if you are giving that kind of a time, so by the time the final pulling the plug scenario is taking place, you have given good minimum 4 days. And in spite of those 4 days being given, you have not recovered enough. Isn't it not an enough proof?
But other way around, it can also be
Possible.
the living will
Absolutely, absolutely, you are absolutely right. That's exactly what I'm saying. That are we having the most perfect system? No. Are we having a system which is not shade but probably loads of shade better than what it is today? Yes. Why? Because today people are struggling in this situation for months together, for weeks together. If that can be reduced to 4 days, is it not betterment? Of course, yes. Is it the best thing? No, nobody is saying it's the best thing to do. Nobody is saying that. And I don't think there is going to be the ultimate best thing, because I think the whole world, even countries where, for last 15, 20, 30 years this particular methodology is there, they also not have been able to find the best way. So I don't think whether there is a best way or no. But anyways, we are not talking of best way. We are talking of betterment than what we were before. That's all. Yes, please.
So in continuance to that question, that enforcement. So in Indian Succession Act, we have a complete chapter of execution of wills. So do we have something kind of concept here, execution of living wills or something?
What is succession?
After your death.
Are we talking of after your death situation here? Before death situation. You are at the brim of death, no? Have you died? You mean, sorry, not you, me. Sorry. Only when death will take place, the word succession will come into picture. No. But at this point of time, you have not still died. This is near death or pre-death.
So, is it just a wish? Can we enforce it? Or is it just a piece of
Yeah, so if at all Supreme Court has legally sanctitized this particular legal document, when it is executed or when it is done in a particular format, okay, Supreme Court is giving the power of enforceability to this document because Supreme Court has backed it. No, otherwise what? Otherwise people today also have been making such kinds of documents, or they are expressing, or they are orally expressing things. It doesn't have enforceability in law, but this document will have enforceability in law because it comes from Supreme Court backing. Yes.
Sir, does medical negligence somehow affect living will?
I did not get your question correct.
Sir, does medical negligence affect living will?
Medical negligence affect living will? How? Sorry, I didn't. What do you mean by that? Can you give me an example? Or can you elaborate?
So, doctor is involved in making living will, right?
Doctor is involved in making living will? No, doctor is not involved.
He's a part of the process.
No. How come doctor will become a part of the process?
He has to tell how long will he live.
No, but first of all, somebody has to make the living will, no?
What?
Doctor will only be able to say that whether conditions of living will are being fulfilled or no. That's only the role of the doctor.
I think what he is trying to say is that when the 3 doctors are appointed to state that whether the person is in vegetative state or not, at that
No, not vegetative state. It's not about vegetative state. If vegetative state you are talking of, that means you are talking of brain dead and all that kind of thing. We are not talking of brain dead person. We are talking of a scenario that there is a document which enlists conditions, okay, which is being enlisted by the person himself. And the doctor and the committee of 3 + 3, 6 doctors are reconfirming that the conditions which have been kind of put down on this document maybe 10, 15, 25 years back, whether they are being fulfilled currently or not. It's not about being vegetative. A person who is completely dementic is not vegetative. He may not be vegetative at all. Or a person who is completely terminally ill with cancer may not be vegetative at all. We are not talking about vegetative condition. Vegetative condition can be one of the conditions written by the person, provided he has written that thing. डॉक्टर इज ओनली रिकन्फर्मिंग इसने 5 कंडीशन लिखा है, अभी इसका कंडीशन वो 5 में बैठता है नहीं बैठता है, दैट्स इट. Yes, please.
Last question from me.
Yes.
It deals a lot with medical ethics because according to medical ethics, you have to
Yeah.
maintain the sanctity of life, preserve the sanctity of life. Now let's say I'm making that will and I am putting out clauses like मुझे थोड़ा भी ये हो रहा है, then do this so and so treatment, don't do so and so treatment, even though it has some chances of me recovering. And now you are the will has been presented to you, and now you are struggling with your own ethics. Then according to me, as a doctor, I can treat him, even though the will says that don't treat me. There is significant chance of preserving the sanctity of his life and making him in a dignified state again.
Correct.
So then where does that stand?
So basically the answer to the question is that first of all, ethics are very fluid. Okay, law is supposed to be stronger than ethics. Ethics are very fluid. Ethics can be very personal. Ethics can differ from person to person. Okay. Now you have a committee of 6 doctors. First of all, you are not. So one person might have this kind of a difference of opinion or something of that sort. All 6 unlikely that they will have. Okay. Now suppose if it so happens, theoretically it so happens that all the 3 doctors or all the 6 doctors, okay, all of them are of the opinion that the person does not fulfill the requirements which are written by the person in the document. Person has said that if I am at a point of no return, okay, when I am severely ill, terminally ill, unconscious, needing ventilatory support, etc., etc., don't give me further treatment. Right? Now suppose as a doctor I feel that no, I can still give treatment and there is a possibility of recovery. So what will I say? I will say no, the person has not still fulfilled the requirements.
So I think a gap in my understanding that the enforceability of the will will only come at a point of no return, or it can come in any case where I feel my dignity is harmed.
Exactly. Who the guiding force is whom? Guiding force is the subject. Who is the subject? The person who made the will.
So I made the will. So according to me, let's say I am not in any point of no return. Let's say I am still living a very healthy life, but I am facing no dementia. I don't remember people. I don't remember things. And according to me, that is undignified. But I straight away say that if such a condition, early symptoms happen, don't give me any treatment. Let the.
So first of all, so my question is, okay, imagine you are there, okay, you do not remember anybody, okay, you are not able to eat, you are not able to drink, you are not able to recollect, you are not able to recognize, you are not able to do it, but you are not at this point of time you are not requiring any life support to keep you alive. You are alive. Without life support, you are alive. So where is the question of living will coming into picture?
So that is what I am asking. The question living will comes in when I am feeling my dignity is going to thus.
And when you are needing life care or life support,
Okay.
only at that point of time living will come into. That's exactly what I said, that you might be having so many dementic people. They are at home. They may be bedridden. They may not be recognizing anybody. But they are at home, they don't require any IV line, they don't require any ventilation, nothing they require. So living will then come into picture at that point of time.
So only when there is a question of life support comes.
Obviously.
Even if I am admitted, but I still don't need a life support.
Obviously.
Again the will is not coming.
No.
And second, last thing, the problem which we are having that my executor or whoever my proxy is not coming forward with the will. So that is possible in every legal scenario. Right?
Exactly.
So for that, like I am asking, is it possible that when you also said that uploading it to the uniform registry where the doctor can also access with your medical records, you say it increases the problem because there is a clause for appointment of proxy.
I mean, what I mean to say is that I don't necessarily say that it increases the problem, but it could increase confusion.
So what I am asking is in the clause where we are drafting about that so and so person with my proxy who will take care that my will is being executed, why aren't we also add that while I am in treatment of the doctor and the doctor comes across a will which is now registered and is made by me authenticated, he can go with it irrespective whether the proxy is provided in the will or not. If that is in the draft, the problem is solved
My answer to you is very simple. That you can give proxy to a specific person. You cannot give a proxy in general. You don't give power. Have you registered a power of attorney? Ultimately, this is a power of attorney. Okay. Have you registered a power of attorney? Well, anybody and everybody who is from MNLU can execute power of... No, you have to give power of attorney to a specific person.
So those two proxies are already appointed. But now the doctor who is under whose care I am.
But you will be under whose care, who knows?
Whoever the doctor may be. So why can't that part be subjective? Let's say I am under your care for now, then you will be the
So
person.
the question will be threefold. Number one, that you don't know as to whom you are appointing, first of all. Okay. Number two, you are putting a blind faith in an unknown personality,
Still,
which
but
is not a good idea per se. Number three, that a doctor may not be wanting to take that responsibility, especially in the absence of other proxy members not agreeing to it.
But sir, on the part of keeping trust on unknown person,
I will ask you a very simple question. Suppose I am your client, okay, and suppose I tell you everything, okay, and I say that you are in a fiduciary relationship because you are a lawyer, you are my advocate, attorney, etc., etc. A relationship between me and you is of a fiduciary nature. I have complete trust in you. I say I will not sign Wakilatnama, but you appear for me. Will you appear? Why? You are in fiduciary relationship, you know so much more than me, you have all the confidence that you will win the case, you are thinking that you are doing good in my best interest, you are trying to do whatever you are trying to do. What is the problem? Why can't you not appear? Will you appear? No, but same is the story here also. Simple. So doctor may not want to do it. Doctor may not want to take that responsibility. If lawyer doesn't want to take the responsibility of standing in front of the court without Wakilatnama, doctor may not also want to. Doctor may say, I can't take this responsibility. Tell your next kins to take the responsibility of decision. Well, I don't know you beforehand.
yeah.
You have come to me for the first time in an unconscious state. Okay, with a document which is being produced by some other person who claims to be your son or whatever that is there. How can I be held responsible for taking decision for you? You are relative, have to take decision. I can just confirm that whether this is perfect, not perfect, whether you fulfill the requirements or the standards laid down or not.
Okay, and so the living will necessarily then not then provided to the doctor as well, right? Because now I am on life support, let's say I am incapacitated, I have no expression. Then even without the living will, the expression then falls to the next of kin. But now the registering a living will, it just making a dictate on my next of kin that you will have to follow this. Right?
Exactly. So next kin is a very crucial person. If the next kin does not take proactive steps, okay, there is a bottleneck and we may not be able to solve that bottleneck. So that's why presence of next kin is crucial. At least the framework that is laid down today for us to follow. Again, same thing. This may not be the perfect system, but this is what is the system. Today, this is what is the system. So I think we must wind up because it's quite late now and it's almost like 6:50. Okay, so thank you once again. I am not too very sure whether I increased the confusion or tried to reduce it. But this is what is the truth of the fact. I mean, all said and done, we are better than what we were previously. But of course, I mean, it's a process of learning, it's a process of maturation. We are kind of embarking onto a completely new journey altogether. So time only will tell us which way we progress, how we progress, etc. The role that you all are expected to play is, number one, that there is a possibility that the university probably will kind of go up. We are trying to do something more and we might be able to have a scenario where people, okay, who are at this point of time struggling, okay, to make their living wills. They want to, but they don't know how to do it. Okay, they might be approaching you guys, okay, and it is expected that you are supposed to help them. So today we have done a lot of legal, practical, even discussion about the limitations, okay, of how much you can go and how much you cannot go. We know that there are certain grey areas, we know that certain no areas, we know that there are certain yes areas. So we have given you an overview of the situation. I think read of the judgment, read of my draft, probably will help you more in kind of understanding how to take it forward from here. And I'm sure there will be few more questions that will come up and which can be solved down the line, offline or one-on-one basis or whatever the case may be. So that is where we are. That is what we are supposed to be doing, and we are basically trying to help the society and community. Please see to it that give these 3-4 crucial instructions to your clients. Number one, that they should preferably have a certificate from the doctor stating that they are in the good health condition, like for any other will you require, that they have the capacity of consenting, good health, blah blah blah, all that kind of thing. When they are going to the notary, they should have 2 witnesses. Number 3, they should go to a notary. And number 4, please help them to send it to the custodian. Today custodian is not appointed, but at some point of time custodian will get appointed. Till that time they can send to the municipal commissioner of Mumbai with a covering letter, which you can again write stating that this is the law, this is the citation, as far as this is concerned it should be sent to a custodian. Today we don't find any custodian, you are the head of the organization, that's why we are sending it to you being the head of the organization. Till such time the custodian is not appointed. Once the custodian is appointed, you will have to send it to the custodian. Okay, so this is what primarily is expected. So probably we could kind of create some kind of a questionnaire for our potential clients, so that you are able to understand what is in their mind. You need to ask them questions to kind of make them mind clear, because you would have understood that we ourselves are at the moment of time unclear about it, obviously, because we are hearing it for the first time. Yeah, so it's bound to be there. It's a process of learning, not only for the clients but for us also. You know what, when I went to the notary, okay, my notary said, no, we have never done this kind of a document ever in the past. I said, how will you do it? I am only the first person in the country. How will you do it before this? Okay, well, that's expected. I mean, what else can what else can happen actually? So this is what it is going to be. So I hope that at least this part of the story is very clear in terms of what is your role. Okay, and I'm sure that a lot of questions will come up, but please send those questions to us, because they will ultimately help us to frame certain questions for legal research. Okay, and ultimately that's where we are going to head it to. As a legal university, ultimately our another important piece of work is going to be legal research. So that's again those practical questions coming in is going to be helpful. So thank you very much. It was a bit delayed, but I think it was necessary. Thank you.
As Sir rightly mentioned, one cannot prolong life, but one can only prolong death. I would like to thank Sir for sharing his knowledge and insightful outlook. I'm sure we are all going back today as more confident, aware and conscious individuals in terms of our knowledge about living wills. Thus, I would like to end today's session in the words of a Japanese writer, Mr. Haruki Murakami. Death is not the opposite of life, but it is a part of it. Now I would like to invite Ms. Aishwarya Pandey to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Misha. Greetings to one and all. I deem it my proud privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this memorable occasion of nation's first ever training workshop on drafting of living wills. I want to begin by extending my heartiest gratitude to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Dilip Oke, and our esteemed Registrar Sir, Professor Dr. Anil G. Variat, for making this workshop remarkable and illustrious despite their professional commitments. I extend my heartiest gratitude to our learned resource person, Dr. Nikhil D. Datta Sir, for gracing us with his valuable insights and for fitting this event into his tight schedule. Next, I would like to thank Professor Dr. Anand Raut Sir, HOD PG, and Dr. Garima Pal Ma'am for their enormous support and guidance in arranging this workshop. I would also like to thank the volunteers, Misha, Vedant, Sumedha, Ritika, Tattva and everybody else for their constant support, and the hard-working center members of Pro Bono Club and Center for Advanced Legal Studies and Training Research. Lastly, I would like to thank all the participants for their zeal and enthusiasm. We are looking forward to organizing many such programs in the future. Thank you so much for being a lovely audience. Thank you.